On today's Crossover Thursday, can the Arizona Cardinals erase the memory of last week's embarrassment and get a win on Thursday night?
Or will the Seahawks continue their dominance at State Farm Stadium?
Let's get it.
You are Locked On NFL Crossover, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Fans, Seahawks fans, it's Crossover Thursday. It's week 4, bro. Appreciate football. Almost a quarter of the season's gone already. Alex Clancy, Locked On Cardinals. My dear friend Corbin Smith, Locked On Seahawks. We're going to give you everything from keys to victory, most important matchups, and the biggest storylines that we've seen through the first 3 weeks. All of that in the next 25 minutes or so. And you got to lock and load there. Today's episode of Crossover Thursday is presented by PrizePicks. Download the PrizePicks app. Use code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Corbin, what's up, dude? The first 3 weeks, both teams are 2-1. It couldn't have looked more different. So I want to jump into this right away. The Seattle Seahawks, if they play like this, an upgraded offense, a better offensive coordinator is actually competent at the NFL level. What is the ceiling for this team? Just quickly, because these last 2 weeks have been wild.
Look, Alex, you might remember our NFC West preview show. I said that this is an 11 or 12 win caliber team. I still believe that. And in fact, I'm more bullish on it right now coming out of these first 3 games. I know a lot of people are going to look at that season opener against San Francisco and say, well, what happened in that game? Seattle was the better team most of that game. They just made some pivotal mistakes that ended up killing them at the end. And week 1 is always a crapshoot. It really is. I look at what has happened the last 2 weeks, really the last 6 quarters, because the first half was not good in Pittsburgh. Like, Seattle was dominant, but they made a couple bad turnovers, and it made the game a 7-point deficit when they probably should have been up 20 points in that game, to be honest. This last week, New Orleans, I went into that game thinking New Orleans might be a little frisky because the first 2 games watching on film, I thought they look like they're halfway decent. Like, they're not a good team, but they look like they're competent. Seattle was up 21-0 before the Saints even realized the game had started. It was an absolute bloodbath. I'm not expecting the Seahawks to do that every single week, obviously, but that game you got to see just how talented this defense is. They were missing 3 starters in the secondary, and they were still locking dudes down. The interior of their defensive line is as good as anybody. They're causing problems every single week. To me, I said at the beginning of the year, and I know a lot of people laughed at me, but like I think, I don't know if Sam Darnold's better than Geno Smith, but look, I think the roster around Sam Darnold is better than what Geno Smith ever had. They've got a competent offensive coordinator. They've got a competent offensive line, which they hadn't had in like 7 or 8 years. I think this team, as long as they don't have the injury bug bite them, I think this team is still, like I said, I think 11 or 12 wins absolutely is doable for this football team right now.
So you said 3 words in a sentence in a row that I've never heard you say. And how long have you been doing Locked On Seahawks?
Since 2019.
Yeah. Okay. And I've been, since 2019, I've never heard you say competent offensive line. Ever. Like, not once. It's kind of a running joke that it's like, they just forget. And it's fascinating because when you look at the Cardinals over the first couple weeks, the defense has been the strength also. And though I know that the offense with JSN, and we'll get into the offense in a minute, but it's like the Arizona Cardinals lost Garrett Williams, thought they lost Max Melton, and thought they lost Will Johnson for the year, all in the course of like 30 real-time minutes against Carolina. And Garrett Williams is on IR, who is one of the better slot corners, if not the best in the league at this point. Will Johnson is still DNP. He's most likely not going to play tonight. And then, Max Melton came back and played, which was a beautiful thing. But the front for the Cardinals is now their strength. They put in all the money. They put in some draft picks, and this is without 16th overall pick Walter Nolan. Like, I could see this, and we'll get to this in the final segment, but like, I could see this just be a grinded out, just defensive battle, and whichever offensive line holds up more will win. Now, both teams are 2-1. The NFC West has 0 teams under 500, and whoever loses this game will go to 0-2 in the division, which is massive. So that's the biggest, like, overarchingly, it's going to look different because they're wearing different jerseys and they've had different plights up until this point. But the overarching biggest storyline is whoever loses this has a massive disadvantage in the NFC West, whether it's, tiebreakers or whatever it is. So, I mean, Thursday night, anything can happen, man.
Yeah, and as you mentioned to me, we talked about this earlier this week on Locked On Seahawks. I know it's week 4. I think this is a critical game. And I look at the fact the Seahawks last year, they had to tie with the Rams at the end of the season. And one of the big things that hurt them is they were both the same record in the division. And if they could have just found a way to scratch out one more win, I mean, they had the Rams beat in week 9 and they ended up taking that one away and losing in overtime. Like there were games that they can look back on, like in division, we could have had another win or two in this division, and it ended up coming back to bite them. So these games, I don't care if it's Thursday night, week 4, this is an incredibly important game, especially when you consider that the Rams are 2-1, the 49ers are 3-0, even with all the injuries they've had. Like this division is as good as any division in the NFL right now. And so from Seattle's perspective, storyline wise, like I think there's a reason that we're going to see Devin Witherspoon and Julian Love back in this football game. And I think Seattle, whether they would, I don't think they'd ever admit this, but I think if the Saints were a better team, they might have considered playing one or both those guys on Sunday. But they decided, look, that game on Thursday Night Football, we got to have that one. And so they let those guys have a few more days, and now both of them are going to be ready to go to play in this game. I think that just tells you the magnitude, not just the fact it's a divisional game, but again, whoever loses this is 0-2. Not that you are completely out of the race, but that really does put you at a disadvantage a quarter of the way through the season. You don't want to be in that position, especially with how competitive this division is.
And the conference in and of itself, like Philly has looked pedestrian for a good portion, especially their pass game, though they woke up the second of the last week. Green Bay lost to Cleveland, just devoid of any rational thought as to how that happened. Like the NFC West is wide. I mean, Detroit looked really good against Baltimore, but it's like winning the division in the NFC West is massive to get that home game. It's just massive. Like it can't be. You want to go on the road, have the same record, and go on the road instead of playing at home because your win-loss record against NFC West opponents was inferior? Yeah, I mean, I agree. And like for the Cardinals, I don't use the term must win before there's playoff or lack of playoff contention there. Like 12-13, if you're like, they have to win or they're eliminated, that's a must win. But for the Cardinals, this is a gotta have it win, because if they lose and it's somewhat ugly, questions immediately. Like everything will be questioned if the Cardinals lose this game 27-13 or something like that, where the offense doesn't work. Is Drew Petzing going to be on the hot seat immediately? What about Kyler Murray? What about Jonathan Gannon? I'm not saying that anything would change, but it's like the narrative was set that the Cardinals had to go into San Francisco and win. Everybody was hurt. Nick Bosa tore his ACL midway through the game. The Cardinals couldn't muster more than 14 points or 13 points on offense, and they had a safety. But it's like they had a chance to win every game this year. They had the ball with under 5 minutes left. They had to get a couple first downs and end the game in victory formation and against 3 inferior opponents, and they were unable to do so. So it lends me to think Thursday Night Football, all the eyes on them, short week, injured roster, that this could be the turning point positively or negatively at the end of it. And I think with Seattle, like if Seattle loses this game, I'd feel much better about Seattle at 2-2 than the Cardinals at 2-2.
And I don't know that they'd feel the same way in Seattle, though, because of the fact that they really should have won that game against San Francisco. So I think, that's still something that's hovering over them. And I think Mike Macdonald's looking at it from this perspective, like, hey, if we want to really show that we are a better team than last year, we can't be losing to teams. And look, Arizona has talent, but Seattle's going to go into this game. Seattle, to me, should be the favorite team. I know that Arizona at home, there may be some differences in opinion on that, but like the way the Seahawks have played the last 2 weeks, how are they going to handle that when there's now a little bit more attention coming their way? I think Mike Macdonald's going to have these guys ready to go. He's proven that week in, week out, that he's going to have this team ready to play. But I think that this is a game, again, they're not going to, Mike Macdonald isn't even going to say, oh, this is must win. But like, this is as important of a week 4 game as you are going to have in the NFL, outside of maybe if you're an 0-3 team and you're like, I'm just trying to keep myself alive. This is as important and critical of a game as you're going to see for both these. And I can see this being a game that is a real momentum changer, one direction or the other, for whoever comes out on top in this game and whoever slips and falls on Thursday Night Football, because I just think It's that kind of a gravity-producing game, in my opinion.
Well put. Corbin Smith, Locked On Seahawks, Alex Clancy, Locked On Cardinals. Week 4, appreciate football. We're already 3 weeks in. 16% of the season is gone already. Don't appreciate it starting week 12. Appreciate it week now. We've got a barn burner Thursday night. The most important matchups. I think we're going to be mirroring ourselves. If I know my boy well, we'll discuss it next. Crossover Thursday here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day. This episode of Crossover Thursday is brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. The NFL season's here. FanDuel is making sure you're ready for kickoff with the can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers bet just $5. And if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Insane. Again, if you're a new customer, you can bet just $5. And if your bet wins, you get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. As Corbin was mentioning, the Cardinals started as a favorite at the end of week 3, and now it's swung to the other side where Seattle is the favorite. It's not by much. It's a point and a half, 2 points, depending on the time of day. But if you want to put some cheese down and you're a new customer, you bet $5. You get $300 in bonus bets. So download the FanDuel app right now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet. Today's episode of Crossover Thursday is also brought to you by Wayfair. When you think game day, you might not think Wayfair, but you should. Because Wayfair is the best-kept secret for incredible and affordable game day finds. Wayfair has everything you need to get your space ready for the season, whether you're tailgating outdoors or cheering from your living room. I picked up a Cardinals grill, and it completely leveled. It was a boring setup for me, and now it's completely leveled up game day set. From outdoor essentials like folding chairs and patio heaters to indoor must-haves like TV stands and serveware, Wayfair has it all in one place. Wayfair is your trusted destination for all things game day, from coolers and grills to recliners and slow cookers. Shop, save, and score today at Wayfair.com. That's WAYFAIR.com. Wayfair, every style, every home. All right, man. Corbin Smith, Locked On Seahawks, Alex Clancy, Locked On Cardinals. Thanks for making our respective shows your first listen. Thanks for making Crossover Thursday your first listen today. This is going to be a hell of a matchup. It's going to be a hell of a matchup. I know Corbin mentioned early in the cold open that they've dominated the Cardinals. We'll always have Stephen Hauschka 9-6 on Thursday Night Football. The game that ruined my favorite kicker at the time's career. When you talk about mentals, that was one of the most bananas games I've ever experienced. Missed field goals, overtime. It was insane. Thursday Night Football, Corbin, one of your most important matchups going into this game for the Seahawks.
You know, we talked about this a little bit on an episode earlier this week. Normally when we have this discussion about these teams, I'd say the last 4 or 5 years, a lot of times immediately things would shift to Budda Baker, as the quarterback of the defense going up against the QB for the Seahawks, or looking at the corners going against DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett. Lockett perennially killed this team. Metcalf had some big games against the Cardinals, but now all the changes that have happened and the fact that the Seahawks, it just seems like they are kind of a different identity than what they have been. I think the Cardinals, to an extent, are that way too.
Yeah.
The Cardinals put so much investment, particularly in their defensive line the last couple of years. I'm looking at the trenches really being what determines this game, and really the defensive lines on both sides in the interior, because Seattle's got Leonard Williams, Jaron Reed, and Byron Murphy II is coming. He's becoming the star that I thought he was going to be. Last year was better than his numbers showed, but now this year the stats are backing it up. He is playing lights out football. That three-headed monster is a real problem, and the Cardinals are banged up in the interior of their offensive line, and Seattle knows Evan Brown well. He lasted 1 year in Seattle, and they decided we're going to go a different direction in the offensive line. Leonard Williams and Jaron Reed and company going up against that interior offensive line, I think that's got a chance to be a matchup that really sways this in Seattle's favor. At the same time, I worry about the Cardinals interior going against Seattle's interior. Gray Zabel's been great so far as a rookie. How is he going to handle Calais Campbell, the ageless wonder, though? How's he going to handle going up against somebody like a Tomlinson, or having to deal with Robinson to the inside? A lot of different types of players that the Cardinals are going to throw at you in the interior. And then Anthony Bradford's questionable going into this game. We don't know if the right guard will start or not. If he doesn't, then Jalen Sundell, their center, is going to slide over to guard, and then Oluwatimi's going to play center. So there's moving pieces there. That has been a pleasant surprise, that offensive line so far. But I think this is a game, the interior, this is going to be a challenge for him. That can be where the Cardinals can really change the way this game plays out, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, that's right. And when I said I know you, I mean, I knew you were going to say that because I agree. It's like great. First of all, Gray Zabel was my choice for the Cardinals at 16. Gray Zabel or Josh Simmons before they went Walter Nolan. I knew it had to be offensive line. I got mocked. Gray Zabel, I knew it was going to be, he played at a small school and his hands are small. Shut up. He plays good football, and it's obvious so far in his career. Yeah, but you're right. I mean, Parrish Johnson Jr. missed last week. It was his first miss of his career, I believe. As we're recording this, sorry, spoiler alert, we're recording this Wednesday night, so we're going to get the final injury reports, a couple hours before the game. It'll trickle out throughout the day. Also, if Parrish Johnson Jr. plays, the Cardinals level up astronomically. He's going to be a Pro Bowl left tackle for the next decade with the Cardinals, you'd hope. Yalta Froholt is an unsung hero here, plays center. He's been great. One of the things, before I pivot to the defensive line, one of the secret special forces that the Cardinals have isn't an offensive lineman. It's third-round tight end from last year's draft, Tip Ryman out of Illinois. This dude was an offensive lineman in a past life. He just happens to have the body type of a tight end. He will be in, especially during blitz package formations when they need, or especially if the Cardinals struggle early on with interior pressure, he will be on the field a lot. He is a big man who can move bodies, and it doesn't matter if it's chipping Leonard Williams or devouring a DB on a blitz. Like he's the guy that's he's really emerged as, he's not really an offensive guy, but he's been a great, great blocker for this team. And, the offensive line has really stepped up this year, even with Will Hernandez was out. He left, and then they re-signed him. We'll see if he plays. He was questionable this week during the whatever they call the injury reports of practices that didn't happen, but would have been.
I call it imagination land. NFL.
Yeah, well, yeah, you got to give something. You got to put something out.
Exactly.
It's a guess at best. But I agree. On the defensive side, like this has been the calling card. The first 2 weeks they didn't show a whole bunch. And then last week they started to show the exotic blitz packages, and Nick Rallis has been grown to know. It's going to be the front seven. I don't really care about the skill position players. It's how you get to the quarterback first that dictates everything else. And I think the team that can do it better will have an upper hand, and that's the biggest upper hand that we're going into tonight, right?
Yeah, but I also think, when you look at the skill positions, though, if Will Johnson, who's doubtful, if Will Johnson's not playing in this game and you're already without Garrett Williams, yeah. I think one of the things that people were underrating going into this season about the Seahawks, they thought, DK Metcalf's gone, Tyler Lockett's gone. Like, they're not going to be able to get the ball downfield. They're second in the NFL in explosives in the passing game through 3 weeks, and there's a couple reasons for that. One, Jackson Smith and Jigba is a monster. JSN is a true number. He was the Seahawks number one half of the second half last year. And that's another reason, DK, you don't want to be here. We'll trade you and we'll get a second round pick. And Torrey Horton is going to be an absolute stud in this league. He's got 3 touchdowns the last 2 weeks, one of them being a punt return. I think Torrey Horton, with his size, not having Will Johnson available, this could be a game where Torrey Horton causes some real problems. Now, the protection's got to hold up, and the Cardinals have the ability to make it that that's not the case. But if Seattle's pass pro holds up, I like their receivers against what is left right now in the Cardinals secondary, particularly the corner positions, with the injuries they're dealing with, and the fact that I think this is a very underrated receiving core. And Cooper Kupp ain't done either.
Nope.
That has been shown the last couple weeks. That, to me, is the matchup when Seahawks are on offense. If they can protect, I like their chances to be able to get some plays against this aggressive Cardinals defense, because I think they've got some advantages on the outside.
Yeah, no, I'd agree with that. Cooper Kupp, Cardinal killer. I mean, he's been in the division. He knows the Cardinals. Obviously, the setup's a little bit different now on defense. Nick Rallis is, for those in Seahawks land, for those that don't, Nick Rallis will be a head coach in the next 2 years. Like, the dude is just special. One thing to mention, because I love that when we do these crossovers, you get a little insight and introspection into another I word, intricacies of a defense or an offense. What the Cardinals have been shuttling out, they had 4 safeties on the field for a good chunk of last week, including 7th round rookie out of Nevada, Keaton Crawford. Their best lineup in the DB room before Garrett Williams and Will Johnson got hurt was a 3 safety set with Budda Baker, Jalen Thompson, and second round player Dadrian Taylor Demerson, alongside 2 outside corners where you'd move Garrett Williams outside and either Max Melton or Will Johnson alongside him outside, and have Jalen Thompson play in the slot because he's had experience doing that here. So I think you're going to see a lot of 3 safety sets, 4 safety sets to overcome the injuries that they've had. But all of this comes down to, as we pivot into keys to victory, if you can cut the head off the snake, we've been doing a lot of podcasts for a long time together. I always talk about cutting the head off the snake. If you can get to Sam Darnold and get in his kitchen and make him uncomfortable, the Cardinals can win this game. If you don't, Seattle will score 40 points. Like, it's not, people undervalue Sam Darnold because he's an NFL quarterback in a vacuum. Any NFL quarterback can pick you apart. It's like the 11th man on an NBA team. You give him a wide open 3, he's going to make it. He's an NFL player. It's the same thing. So it's going to be fascinating to see what your keys to victory are as we pivot here. Zach Charbonnet healthy. That terrifies me with him and Kenneth Walker. We'll talk about it all as we wrap up here. Crossover Thursday, Corbin Smith, Alex Clancy, Locked On Cardinals. Keys to victory. Next. This episode of Crossover Thursday is brought to you by our dear friends at Game Time. NFL season's back. Obviously, we're in week 4. Honestly, there's nothing better than being in the stadium surrounded by fans, cheering on your team. But let's be honest, getting ticket can be a hassle. Between queues, login screens, prices jumping at checkout, it's frustrating. You've all been through it. That's why I use Game Time, the app that gives you the advantage. And, it's fast, easy, backed with the Game Time guarantee. You'll always get 100% authentic tickets delivered on time and at the best price. Plus, all fees are included, so the price you see is the price you pay. Download the Game Time app today. Create an account. Use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that's promo code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download Game Time today. Corbin Smith. What's up, dude? I'm like, somebody who's been around the team for a while, this is my 9th year hosting this show. I've been in sports media for 15 years. I'm going to say that as a flex. It's like games like this terrify me because we've seen this story before where it's like, we're talking about this team now. This was supposed to be a week 12 conversation if things were to go haywire. Keys to victory for you that would turn the Cardinal season from 2-0 to 2-2 in 4 short weeks.
I think the first thing is you have got to be able to continue doing what you've done the last 4 or 5 times you've played Kyler Murray, and that is dominate the interior with pressure and get in his face. And look, I know the narrative is probably a tired one, but it shouldn't be because it's true. If you get Leonard Williams and Jaron Reed and company pushing offensive linemen back into Kyler Murray's lap and Seattle's edges contained, which they've done such a good job of the last 2 or 3 times, at least these teams have gotten together. If you do that, you're putting Kyler Murray in a position where he is not going to be successful. And the Seahawks did that both games to him last year. So I'm looking at that interior. Again, that's why it was my key matchup. Like Leonard Williams and company, the Cardinals offensive lines played better. But you still have those 3 freaks in the middle that you can just rotate. And by the way, Mike Morris is starting to become a really good player too, adding to that group. So they've got a lot of different guys they can throw at you. That to me is the big key. If you can get that interior pressure, and I think Seattle stopping the run early on early downs is going to be key as always. But that interior pressure to me, anytime you play the Arizona Cardinals and you play Kyler Murray, that and having the edge contained, you got to have both those things married together. And if you do that, I always like Seattle's chances a lot better. If they have one or both those things break down, then I get worried that this game could get ugly. If Kyler Murray can get the ball off cleanly, he can see his receivers, and he's able to get outside, scramble and stuff. They let him do that kind of stuff. We've seen the Cardinals win these matchups in the past against the Seahawks. So to me, it always starts and ends with that interior play on defense on the front line.
It's fascinating you say that because you're like, you got to stop the run because you're so used to, at least over the last couple seasons, they've been dominant is excessive. They've been a top 8 rushing attack since Drew Petzing took over as offensive coordinator. And now with James Conner being out for the rest of the season, I have a sneaking suspicion, and I'm imploring this to happen. Throw the ball more. Get Trey Benson involved. This is going to be his first career start as an NFL player. Get the ball in the air, not dink and dunk. For those that don't know, Kyler Murray had 35 pass attempts last week. Less than 5 yards per attempt. He had 165 passing yards or something. If Kyler Murray is going to be the guy, James Conner, the most important non-Trey McBride on the team, and he's not there, you got to pivot. Especially with the interior defensive line like they're going to be seeing. This is a situation you got to move the pocket, Get Kyler Murray rolling out, do a little bit more play action than you're used to, throw the ball down the field, render Leonard Williams and his run-stuffing ability, his ability to blow up the interior of a pocket as close to obsolete as possible, and you can stay in this game. If they're running the ball 12 times for 22 yards and Kyler Murray can't get anything moving the ball down the field, this is going to be a long, long night for the Cardinals. And there's going to be those questions right around the corner. What the hell are we doing here kind of thing? So as we wrap up here, and you listen, we've talked about the skill position players. This is about the lines. It just is. Who's going to win? Who's going to dominate? Give me your I don't need a prediction. What the Seattle Seahawks win if? Give me two things.
They win if, one, the run game is competent. And for me, that would be 90-plus rushing yards. I think this week they are going to need to run the ball. Last week, a lot of people were like, they couldn't run the ball. It's like, well, they didn't need to. And the Saints were letting them pass all over them. They had short field. Game circumstances more than anything dictated that. I think you're going to see the Seahawks come out and running the football. And look, I think Clint Kubiak, he's not dumb. He has mixed in some gap schemes. They saw what they did last year running gap, even in Ryan Grubb's offense. I'm expecting we're going to see quite a bit more gap than we usually see because I think the Seahawks, especially if Charbonnet plays in this game, he's listed as questionable. I think you're going to see him and Ken Walker get some opportunities to run more gap schemes. So I think competent 90-plus rushing yards. And I think the second thing for me, if they get at least 2 turnovers, and that has been a huge part of this dominance they've had the last couple of years against Arizona. They have put Kyler Murray in bad spots, in pickles, and he has thrown the ball up. And look, if you just take shots just for taking shots against this secondary, you are going to pay for it. And that's the conundrum the Cardinals are going to deal with here. You want to be more aggressive, but at the same time, it's like that secondary is going to be close to full strength this game. They got Witherspoon and Love back, and they've been picking guys off left and right without them. It's kind of a pick your poison type ordeal.
Yeah, I like that you went particular and not general because I'm going to go the same way. If the Cardinals score 24 points or more, I think they'll win this game. It's going to be difficult to get there against this defense because I think the Cardinals defense, irrespective of who's lining up on the opposing side of the line, this Cardinals can hold most teams under 24 points. And I know that they're going to be without Garrett Williams. They're most likely to be without Will Johnson. It doesn't matter, even though rationally it should. They've also not played as good of a team yet as the Seahawks. So there's going to be a test there. That's one for me. And yeah, for me, it's the turnover battle. It's really, if they can turn Seattle over, you can get into Sam Darnold's kitchen, maybe a strip sack, maybe an errant throw, maybe an interception, maybe Kenneth Walker puts the ball on the turf, something like that. Opportunistic is how the Cardinals defense is going to need to play from here on out because of the offensive woes, because of James Conner being out. I will promise you one thing as we get out of here. This defense, and I did this on the Cardinals Squad Show, and one of the hosts didn't know this movie, Little Giants, okay? Little Giants, when I don't even want to talk about it. I didn't want to talk about it. I was shocked. Little Giants, when they put the Alka-Seltzer in their mouth, foaming at the mouth, that's what this defense is going to be Thursday night. This will be no joke. I wish they were wearing their blue jerseys and not the rivalry jerseys. Like, this is going to be a demonic start from this defense. Nick Rawls will have them ready. They know they need to lead the charge with James Conner out and the offense struggling. And what a better opponent than a division opponent who's been white hot lightning the last 2 weeks.
And I will say this as my closing statement. Seattle is going to have their offensive line lathered up, ready to play. Maybe the Cardinals have something to say about that, but I think the Seahawks are going to come into this game ticked off. They did not run the ball better last week, and I think they're going to be out to prove to people that they can, like they did 2 weeks ago against Pittsburgh, that they can. And they've ran well against this defense with this same coordinator before. I'm interested to see how that plays out, but I think this is a run game that's going to be coming in motivated, so it's going to be a hell of a battle. I'm really excited.
If that doesn't get you jacked up, you just don't love football. Corbin Smith, Locked On Seahawks. Alex Clancy, Locked On Cardinals. Thank you for making Crossover Thursday your first listen. Make your next listen on our respective shows on Friday, immediately following the game. We'll talk to you then.